As we know, Miami is a melting pot for MROs, trading companies, airlines, with Miami being a gateway to South America as well. What's the impact of that on the aviation industry? Maybe let's start with you, Todd.
If you look, when I joined, or when I moved to Miami, 1989, working for an airline here, a major airline. When you look at the market then, you had some major engine facilities back then, and it was a lot of MRO focus in the Miami area. Subsequently, when the larger players, Eastern Airlines and Pan Am went out, you saw a migration of, that experience, starting up the smaller MROs. You had M&N, Greenwich Air Services, so a lot of those smaller companies started to grow. At the time, aviation sales was here, and so a lot of the maintenance and experience had moved into the trading business, and that's actually how I got into the business, moving from maintenance, as AMT into basically managing lease fleets and manage engine repairs, and then growing into other things.
Victor, I mean, you worked at Eastern Airlines
Yeah,
in the past.
that's actually how I acquired my experience in the aircraft and engine business, and that's quite a long time ago. As these airlines, Eastern Airlines, Pan Am, even Piedmont and Braniff, a lot of the people in the maintenance facilities there ended up migrating into the outskirts of the Miami area and putting together a lot of these MROs. Some of them became very, very big MROs, like Todd said, Bradshaw eventually became Greenwich Air. And that grew up into a very big company, which eventually got bought out by GE themselves.
Right.
So a lot of these other companies have grown quite a lot, and then some go, but others come.
And I think on that basis, I mean, I've been in the industry 15, 16 years now. And I remember being based out of the UK, London. We always looked at the US as the biggest market in the world. Well, I believe it still is. I believe Asia's fast catching up. But US being the biggest market for aviation, Miami itself and Florida has certainly been a breeding ground for a lot of repair shops and MROs.
In Miami-wise, it has changed because now we have way more MROs, way more options for repair shops. The thing is, at the end of the day, you want to keep your costs down. So you have to be pretty selective to make sure that whatever MRO you choose is going to be attached to the engine model that you build in or your effort model. So in other words, Miami will give you that option. We'll give you that option to shop around and keep the cost down as much as you can.
With the smaller MROs, I agree. It helps keep your costs down. Now it's migrated to these smaller shops, that tend to subcontract that capability out. And just not only in Miami, but in Americas in general, the large shops have tended to, go overseas. And a lot of that back shop capability is now, positioned in Asia or in Europe, not so much in the U.S. anymore.
Would you say that's a contributing factor towards that is labor costs? Is it the cost of real estate increasing? Is that any sort of contributing factor towards?
Personally, I don't want to get too political about it, but it's just it's been the cost, right? I think a lot of, especially the airfoils, it's labor, intensive. That type of work's gone overseas. Going overseas impacts your costs, impacts your turn times, especially on engines. I think we're seeing that.
Also, I think one of the things that we have in the past on many occasions is experience within those repair shops, having the right people with the right experience to help you realize value within your yields. And I think this is quite an important thing to discuss. Going back to HPT blades or HPC blades, I think especially after the pandemic 3 or 4 years ago, we had a lot of experience that had left the industry, within these MROs, which are now replaced with new people, don't have that experience. How is that impacting our yield rates, us being able to pass the cost saving onto our customers?
That's one of the big drivers as far as parts repair cost. Some of these companies that had tried to put in new equipment to try to expand some of their capabilities, it's both easy and hard. So you have the easy aspect of adding that capability. The hard part is the cost of that equipment. But even if they get the equipment, they need to have that specialized technical experience. So you still have those points that drive up the cost.
And look, I mean, it's a people business,
Yeah.
people industry. I mean, we spend a lot of time on the road, traveling to different conferences, different events, building new relationships. Would you say that's a contributing factor towards us as an aftermarket or USM company or asset management company?
Yes, but we also have the other option, instead of going into the OEM route, going to the DER route, right? Which is also another factor that can help you, drive that cost down and making that work, making that engine model work.
It's a good alternative option too.
It is.
Well, I think on the legacy engines, it will be an option. On the newer equipment coming out, it's controlled by the OEMs. That's going to be a tough nut to crack for the Chromaloys of the world.
Touching base on Miami being a strategic hub, South America, we've noticed over the past few years and a number of airlines who are struggling with the Chapter 11 issues. You are consistently seeing new MROs, small MROs popping up in Latin America. I mean, what is that looking like, and what is the future bright for that? Is it for that jurisdiction?
We've taken on more of a focus for South America, and we just come out of the ISTAT, and there's some interesting numbers. They're growing, on a year-over-year basis. They're growing actually probably as fast as North America. So when you look at that, there's a good opportunity there. There's a more of a focus on South America. I see it as more of an opportunity for asset acquisitions, the end of life fleet stuff that would help our business. But there are some large MROs down there, doing a lot of business. Lufthansa, NTU, and even GE has their Selma shop, they're in Brazil. So there's a big MRO focus there. So there is more of a focus on South America, and it's growing, and we're going to put more focus on South America as well.
Absolutely. Cristian, you? I mean, you're from Argentina. Yes, myself.
I mean, the key word, I guess, it will be between the companies here in the US and South America. It's going to be, trust, I guess. There's a lot of, trust issues between, if you're going to be able to collect payment, if they're going to keep their word in doing what they're telling you that they're going to do. I guess your options would be to have an agent there or have an office. So you can keep on knocking on that door and make sure that deal goes through. I think there's a lot of opportunities, but that trust, we got to keep building it up.
I mean, one of these things is payment terms. I mean, this is always a big issue when you're screening the customer to do business. It is payment terms in order for you to be able to, do more business in the future and have that trust. I mean, is it going to be 30 days, 60 days, or 90 days before you get paid? Or could it be longer?
Or if you agree to 90 days, like some of the airlines demand, down there, does it turn into 180 days? That really impacts your models.
Just coming back to what I said before, the US is a real strategic hub. How do we see the Asia Pacific region growing? How do we see it challenging maybe what's happened over here in the US?
In my opinion, Asia is a must for us. There's a lot of untapped markets, and you have Vietnam, which is something we've looked at in the past, and I think is key. But Southeast Asia, the Korea region, with their low cost carriers and a couple of majors there. China is one that we definitely have to focus on and be on.
I mean, Cristian, you've seen this in the past with the companies that you've worked for. I mean, you've done a lot of work in those regions. How do you see?
It's always going to be active. I think Asia region is the region that has the most active leases of A320s, CFMs, V25s. It's going to keep being active. It's going to keep on growing. But like Todd said, there's really a lot of untapped regions. And some of these companies or MROs, they're not linked to the OEM, or they're not on the contract to the OEM. So you have the freedom to go after them, and see if there's any opportunities out there.
Look, as you know, I am based out of the Middle East, based out of Dubai, which has been what is now a strategic hub for a lot of customers. Certainly is the gateway to Asia, and lots of business that we're looking to do in the Asia region. Now, Middle East. Have you seen a lot more confidence within the Middle East over the past few years, Victor?
Yeah, I think so. The Middle East is somewhere that I think it's, from our point of view, from our perspective, it's still untapped, just like Asia.
Yeah, I would say that the Middle East, I've been there for 10 years now, 11 years going on, and a lot of the business I've done has not been in the region. You know, a lot of the business has been done in the US, it's been done in Europe, but it's been a great hub for development, for building, to establish and, you know, get some boots on ground to try to break into Far East Asia. I would say that there is still a lack of confidence because, as we know, there's always this worry about it being a gateway into sanctioned countries. I think this is something that we have to discuss, we have to talk about, especially from a trading perspective. And when I say sanctioned countries, we're now talking about the likes of Russia and Iran and so on and so forth. So it's important for us as a company to establish our export compliance controls to ensure that we screen every customer the right way. And being in the US, how important is that now within our market? Now is
Very, very, very. The stability of the region definitely is a focus, right? It's a governmental focus. It's something that we've got to control, as you said. You know, we brought in, we've implemented our own quality assurance team, right, to make sure that we're in compliance with that. And there's still concern for the Middle East. You know, that today we could be doing a business with a customer, and tomorrow we may have governmental sanctions, you know, and had the, you know, aircrafts, you know, stuff there. You know, especially if once started leasing, you know, and it happened in Russia, you know, once the war had started, you know, all of a sudden the sanctions are slapped there, and there's a lot of companies that had a lot of assets stuck out there. And so the concern for that region is real.
And it's tough as well, because at the same time, you don't want those, you want to put the right controls, right measures in place, not to stop you from doing business, but to help you do business in the right way.
Right.
I think that's also a key thing to understand and take into consideration. Well, guys, thanks for joining. Really appreciate your insights, and that's coming. Thanks for joining.